I usually just rattle it off. Yeah. This is Tim Jones with The Tim Jones Show. Welcome to Sunday, January 14th. Hey, it's Martin Luther King Day tomorrow, which means folks in the legislature will get a little breather. They could probably use it after next week. And we're going to talk to one of our favorites from that Missouri legislature right now. Senator Bob Onder, the senior senator from the county of St. Charles, joins us now on The Tim Jones Show. Bob, good evening. How are you?
I'm doing great, Tim. It's great to be on with you.
Hey, Bob, thanks so much. I don't know if you heard that that little line from Trish Regan from Fox Business, and she was talking about how, she said, I don't think you Democrats want the economy to succeed because then you're going to have to give some credence to Donald Trump.
Well, that's for sure. That's for sure, Tim. And, I think we've known for a long time that businesses hate uncertainty. And with Obama, you never knew what shoe was going to drop next. A war on affordable energy, new environmental regulations, new mandates, expansions of Obamacare. Almost the minute Donald Trump was elected, the economy, the job creators in our country breathed a sigh of relief, and the economy started taking off. And now with the tax cut plan, things are only going to get better from here. You ain't seen nothing yet.
Yeah, but I mean, the economy's a long game, and I think you and I, we both know, we've been in this, both of us, long enough that we know that one person does not affect the entire economy. However, it's the whole body of work, right? So if you have a Congress that is controlled, if you have an entire Congress, which is generally controlled by the free market philosophy, which we have right now on the federal level and on the state level, and in a lot of states, right? I think 26 states now have Republican trifectas across the board. So if you have that in the country, and then you have an executive branch like we have on the federal level and like we have on the state level that's generally in favor of that philosophy, well then incrementally you're going to start seeing progress. But I think for them to say that this is all Barack Obama's glorious economy, we finally get to see it after 9 years. It's really sticking their head in the sand, isn't it? And hoping for something that's not happening.
Well, that's right. It was really Barack Obama holding things back. We had a big recession back in 2007, 8, and 9, and usually we would have had a big rebound from that, and it was really Obama that held it back. We never saw 3% growth in our economy under Barack Obama. It's really pent-up growth that was ready to take off. The American people, American businesses will create jobs, will expand, will give people economic opportunity. So if we only let it, it was really the Obama administration that had a war against business and against the economy. So, yeah, you're right. At the federal, the state level, we're really open for business, and we really want to give people the economic opportunity, the jobs, the wage growth that they deserve.
And, I think to do that, you have got quite a few ideas. I know that you are working on already this year here in the second full week of the legislature that's approaching. And I know you're hoping this week to focus on, some of those things and not some of the things you did last week. But before we get to that, Bob, just real quickly, everybody was shocked, surprised, disheartened about the news that came out last week about the extramarital affair the governor had. But here we are now, 5 days later. Nothing new has come out. No other shoes have dropped. Perhaps the dust does need to settle a little more. But, Bob, what I've seen in all of this as well is a lot of people trying to take political advantage of something that is really an unfortunate private situation.
Yeah, I think that's right, Tim. The allegations against the governor are concerning. He has admitted to being unfaithful in his marriage, but he's denied some of the other claims that have been landed against him. And right now, I think we just don't have all the facts. We need to wait and see what we learn. And most of all, I think we need to give the Greitens family some space and not try to exploit this really tragic personal situation for political gain.
Yeah, and Bob, I think, and you and I talked over the weekend about the things you're going to be working on starting this week, and I think it's really unfortunate that some people want to use this as an excuse to not have a session, to not do much, and we're going to be all distracted now, and you're not distracted because you're going to be submitting a bill this week, having a hearing on a bill, which would have major implications for the state. So I would warn everybody, you better watch what Senator Bob Onder does, or maybe you don't. Maybe they don't want you to pay attention, right? And Bob, and just get this thing, just shoot this thing right through the Senate, right? But
that's right.
You're taking on a major issue involving public sector union workers, which I think in this day and age have become the real fourth rail of government in a bad way. So why did you file the bill you did? What's the problem you're addressing, and what do you hope to fix?
That's right, Tim. Yeah, I think we were given last year an unprecedented opportunity to move Missouri in the right direction, and I think one of those things we need to do, one reform that's needed, is government union reform. Government unions need to be more accountable to their members. Government union contracts influence all sorts of aspects of our lives, everything from how our kids are educated to how our city halls run, to how much we pay for public services. And yet the workers themselves, by and large, haven't voted on whether to be represented by a union since the 1970s. So I think the right of voters, of workers to vote whether or not to continue to be represented by unions or to be represented by a new union is essential. I also think government workers need to be able to see where their dues money is going, just like workers in the private sector can see where their union dues are going. And finally, I think money should not be withheld from anyone's paycheck for political purposes without their consent. I think these are really just common sense reforms that are long overdue, and I'm really committed to getting those done this session.
Speaking to Senator Bob Onder from the county of St. Charles, he's a senior senator up there in the Missouri legislature. Getting back to work this week, hearing on his bill on Wednesday, I believe, Bob, right?
We're going to hear it in the General Laws Committee on Wednesday.
And Bob, I understand that you do you want to talk about the special guest you have coming in or not for your hearing?
Well, yeah, we have a really neat woman, a teacher from California, who took on one of the most potent political forces in our country, the California NEA.
So wait a minute, Bob. I got to stop you right there. You have a teacher from California coming into Missouri to testify in favor of your bill to reform public sector. Now, you're not pulling our leg, are you?
No. Rebecca Friedreich is a rock star. She sued her own union at great personal cost to herself and brought the case all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. And basically the question at hand is whether she could be compelled to pay union dues as a condition of being a teacher in the state of Missouri. And, it made it to the Supreme Court, and based on oral arguments, it looked like she was going to win, essentially that she would win, she and all the other public workers in the United States would win that right to keep a job without being compelled to join or pay dues to a union. And actually, she would have won. Based on oral arguments, we thought she would win, but Justice Scalia died, and that deadlocked the court. And we have a similar case coming out of Illinois. The Mark Janis is a public worker in Illinois who's bringing a similar case to the Supreme Court. But Rebecca Friedrichs is a rock star, and I am just so pleased she's going to be joining us in Jeff City this Wednesday.
And Senator, isn't it true that the left, especially the union bosses in the left, they never want these stories about the rank and file splitting, and it's kind of like from the old Star Trek movie. It's like someone escapes from the Borg, right? And they discover what it's like to breathe oxygen and see the blue sky, and they wake up to the reality that freedom and personal decision making and how you want to spend your own money is so much better than being shackled to these union bosses and their political agendas.
Well, that's right, and Rebecca not only did not like to have to pony up to the union bosses for their activism in elections, but she disagreed with a lot of the positions they took on things like parental choice in education and freedom of parents to choose the best education for their children. She was someone who believed in education reform and school choice, and so she did not want to be a member of the California NEA. So she was very courageous and really she led the way. If Mark Janus wins his case in Illinois this coming session of the Supreme Court, it will only be because Friedrichs led the way.
Senator, one more thing I wanted to ask you about before I let you go is you brought to my attention an article I want to share with our audience because it's got some tremendous statistics in it. It's written by our good friend Grover Norquist of Americans for Tax Reform, who is very interested in this issue you and I have just been discussing.
Oh, yeah.
He's interested about it not just for Missouri, but for the entire nation. And he wrote an article, and folks, it's called Why Republicans and Trump may still win big. Not just win, but may still win big in 2020 despite, quote-unquote, everything. The everything, of course, Bob, is everything from Russian collusion to saying certain countries maybe aren't as good as others, which, he's just making factual statements.
Colorful language.
Colorful language, so on and so forth. So despite everything, despite the left and the media's just full-out frontal assault on everything Trump and everything Republican every day, Grover Norquist believes that if you do reforms like Wisconsin did, like you're trying to do here in the state of Missouri with the bill that's going to be heard in the legislature, in the Senate on Wednesday, we can still win, the party can still win, and win big in 2020. Now, why is that?
Well, really, it's just this issue that right now government unions have monopoly control over the workers in many areas of government. And just to give you an idea of the magnitude of the dollars that are involved in Wisconsin since 2011, when Act 10, a reform similar to my bill, was enacted, government workers have saved $500 million. That's $500 million that instead of going to the political causes of the union bosses went into the paychecks, to the family budgets of the workers, the teachers, the firefighters in that state.
$500 million in less than 8 years. That is
amazing.
Now we know, Bob, why the unions fight so hard to keep that stranglehold on those worker paychecks. $500 million reasons why, right?
You've got it.
Hey, Bob.
I look carefully under my car every time before I started.
He says only half jokingly. Hey, Senator Bob Onder, thank you so much for joining us and explaining to us what is going to be, I think, one of the paramount issues that the legislature will continue the session. I hope you all are able to get safely back to work this week and back to the people's business.
We will, Tim. We will not let the distractions get in our way. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You can follow him at Bob Onder Mo, and Bob, will talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Tim.
We'll be back after this.
This is the Tim Jones Show on FM News Talk 97.1, 98.7, and AM 1490.